All right, and once we're familiar with overall idea, now let's actually set up our token in the create JWT. And this is the NPM package that I'm going to use. Now, there's plenty of them out there, but this seems to be one of the most popular ones. The name is JSON Web Token. If you want to find out more info, here is the URL. And as always, we want to start our journey by actually installing the package. So let me stop the server, spin it up as well. So let's go with npm start. And then in the user model, we want to go with import. So in my case, I'm going to go with JWT. And then the method that we want to use in this case, when we're creating, is sign. So we go with JWT or taco and burrito, whatever is the name for your variable, and then dot sign. And that sign is looking for three things. It's looking for the payload, essentially what we're going to be sending. And what's interesting, in our case, we're only going to be sending the user ID. And notice how we're accessing this. I go with this dot. Again, that's why it was important to set it up as a function. And then underscore ID. So whatever is going to be the ID from a user, I'll set it up here as user ID. Now, as a quick side note, I just prefer using this user ID, job ID, product ID. I mean, you can also do something like this. You can just say ID. It's just, in my experience, when you have a bunch of IDs and underscore IDs, it makes a little bit more sense if you're more explicit of what this ID actually represents. Just my preference. If you rather prefer shake and bake, who am I to judge? Now, back to our main topic. Why we're just sending this ID? Well, because keep in mind that we'll only access this payload back on the server. So I really don't care about the email. I really don't care about the name. I really don't care about the city and whatnot. Why? Because I can get all of this data with my ID anyway. So I'll take the ID, I'll set up my user, and then in every controller where I want to get that user, I'll just say, hey, look, get me that user with that specific ID. That's all we have to do. Hopefully that is clear. And don't worry, rest of the stuff we'll send from the controller anyway. So when we're talking about the names, emails, and all that, yes, that will be set up, but it will be set up right from the controller. Then we want to pass in the secret. So this is going to be the value that is used to sign our tokens. And therefore, in the next video, I'll show you where we can get more secure value. And we'll also set this up as .env. And as a result, we'll have way more secure value here. And second, we're not going to expose it when we push our code up to the GitHub. Because the last thing you want is for somebody else to start creating tokens on your behalf. That's definitely not a place that you want to be in. And then lastly, we have options. And in the options object, we're just going to set up expires in. So that's the property. And in my case, I'm going to go with 1 day. Now, if you want to find out more info, you can utilize the docs. Because again, my assumption is that this is a refresher for you, not the first time you see the JWT. So once we have installed everything, now let's navigate to a user one. Let's grab our JWT, where I'm going to go with import JWT from, and then the package name is JSON Web Token. Let's scroll back down, and then where we have the create JWT, what I want to do from this function is to return that JSON Web Token with payload, secret, for time being just hard-coded. Eventually, we'll set it up in the .env, and also the options where we'll set up expires in. So let's go here with return JWT, then sign, and like I said, we're going to go with user ID, and then this will be equal to what? This dot and underscore ID. And just to make it clear, yes, we cannot see this ID here when we're creating schema, but we do know that it exists, correct? Notice the response. I have all the properties, and what do you know? All the way in the bottom, I have underscore ID. So that's going to be the ID for the genre user. And that's exactly what I'm going to set up here in my payload. Then we want to go with that secret again for time being, just a dummy value before we set up .env. And then lastly, let's go with the payload. Let's say expires in, and we're going to go with 1 day. Let's save this. And here's what I want to do right now. I want to go to auth controller, and then instead of just invoking it like it is, I'm going to assign it to a variable, in this case, token. And then I want to set up one more property in this object. So essentially, when it comes to this user, that is going to represent our user document, correct? But just so it's easier on a front end, just so I don't have to do some nested destructuring and all that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 2 more properties. Now, the location will make sense later, and we're not going to add it there for right now. But for time being, I just want to add this token. Again, in between the videos, I did remove the John, so shouldn't have no problems if I go back. And what do you know? Not only I have my user, but I also have my token. Now that's the one that we'll use in the communication between the front end and the server. So every time John is going to make some kind of request from the front end, the request will have this. Otherwise, server is going to send back the error response.